She's navigating the fallout of her son Jordan's, Isaiah Hagen Brown, tragic accident which saw Ian Beale, Adam Woodyard, strike him with his car while being consumed with guilt, the crash coming after she'd snapped at him to leave her alone as she tried to pursue Zach Hudson, James Farrar. As Chelsea dealt with the realization that Jordan could be paralyzed for life, she also that her mum, Denise Diane Parrish, had been diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia AML, a fast-growing and aggressive type of blood cancer. The news of Denise's illness did bring about the return of Chelsea's little sister, Libby Fox Belinda Owusu, and after some initial friction between the estranged sisters, Chelsea found herself leaning on Libby. As they caught up, Chelsea admitted to Libby that Jordan's great-grandma and the grandma of his dad, crazed serial killer Gray Atkins, Toby Alexander Smith, Sheila Ruskin, had been attempting to financially support Jordan, sending an endless stream of checks, none of which Chelsea had cashed. With Chelsea desperate to help Jordan's rehabilitation, meaning she'd need to access private physiotherapy sessions to provide him the best possible chance of regaining his ability to walk, Libby was instantly struck and took it upon herself to contact Sheila herself, requesting her help. When Chelsea found out she was livid, though upon receiving the sage advice of Eve Panis-Aronwin's Heather piece, she reconsidered her position and contacted Sheila herself, seeking a meeting between them. In today's episode, Chelsea was fraught with stress, despite Libby's best attempts to calm her down, evidently uncomfortable with placing herself back in the orbit of anyone connected to Gray. Nonetheless, the sisters head to night fusion, with Chelsea practically vibrating with anxiety knowing Sheila was approaching and, as it stood, unwilling to allow her any contact with Jordan. When she finally arrived, Chelsea's edge remained, before she was unable to stop the words tumbling from her mouth. Was Sheila still in contact with Gray? Sheila confirmed that she couldn't actually remember the last time she'd seen Gray in person, but her last image of her grandson was on a news report about his arrest and his multiple crimes. Continuing on, she said she struggled to deal with the fact that her grandson was a stone-cold serial killer who destroyed lives, and that this fact had brought her own career in law to a premature end. Chelsea inquired as to whether Sheila had been attempting to help Gray's other kids, Mackenzie Isaac Lamonius, and Mia Mahalia Malcolm, who were living with their maternal grandmother Karen Taylor Lorraine Stanley, to which Sheila replied that Karen wasn't interested in her help and she didn't blame her. As Sheila began to get excited about the prospect of meeting Jordan, Chelsea began to recoil, and when she then wrote a check for £3,000, she withdrew further, politely declining the money while telling her that she wouldn't be able to see Jordan. Sheila, wounded but accepting, departed. At the hospital, Chelsea learned from Auntie Kim Fox, Tamika Empson, that Ian had hired an expensive and intimidating lawyer, while Chelsea struggled to deal with Jordan's pleas to come home. Confronted with how much help Jordan might need, she called Sheila back. Meeting up again later, Chelsea took the check, while giving Sheila a picture of Jordan to go in her purse alongside her picture of Mackenzie and Mia. As Chelsea left, though, Sheila slid the picture down next to a picture of Gray, staring lovingly at the image of her monstrous grandson. Clearly, Sheila and Gray are a lot closer than she'd like anybody to realize, and with his upcoming return, is Sheila the conduit that brings the beast back to his old hunting ground? Walford was no stranger to shockwaves, but nothing could have prepared the residents of Albert Square for the return of one of its most feared former residents, Gray Atkins. For years, Gray's name had been spoken only in hushed tones. The man responsible for multiple murders had disappeared from public consciousness after his downfall, locked away and seemingly gone forever. But as summer settled over Walford, a dark shadow began creeping back into the lives of those who thought they had escaped him. It started with an anonymous letter. Chelsea Fox was the first to receive one. The plain envelope contained only a single sentence. The truth was never buried. At first, she dismissed it as a cruel prank. But when similar letters began arriving at several addresses around the square, panic spread quickly. Whitney Dean felt physically sick when she opened hers. Karen Taylor, still carrying years of grief, received one too. The messages were identical. Nobody knew who was sending them. Then came the sighting. Late one evening, Patrick Truman claimed he saw a familiar figure standing near the tube station. The man wore a dark coat and baseball cap, but Patrick was certain. It was Gray, he insisted. Most people refused to believe him. After all, Gray was still supposed to be behind bars. But then a shocking revelation emerged. Jack Branning discovered that Gray had recently been transferred to a lower security facility as part of a rehabilitation program. Worse still, there had been a temporary release authorized for legal consultations. Gray had been back in London. The news spread like wildfire. Chelsea immediately feared for her safety and that of her son Jordan. Memories she had fought hard to suppress came flooding back. Meanwhile, Whitney became convinced someone was watching her. And perhaps someone was. As tensions rose, another mystery surfaced. A hidden storage unit rented under a false name was discovered on the outskirts of London. Inside were boxes filled with documents, photographs, and recordings linked to Gray's past. But among the disturbing collection was something nobody expected. Evidence suggesting Gray hadn't acted entirely alone. The discovery stunned everyone. One recording featured Gray speaking to an unidentified individual shortly before one of his crimes. The second voice remained distorted, but it was clear the pair shared dangerous secrets. Suddenly, Gray's return seemed far more terrifying than any mystery accomplice. And why had their identity remained hidden for so long? Jack launched an urgent investigation, determined to uncover the truth before panic consumed Walford. Yet the closer he got to answers, the stranger things became. Witnesses reported seeing unfamiliar faces around Albert Square. Several residents received threatening text messages warning them to stop asking questions. Then one night, the Queen Vic became the center of another terrifying incident. During a crowded evening, the pub's electricity suddenly failed. Darkness engulfed the room. Screams echoed through the building. When power returned moments later, a chilling message had been painted across one wall. Gray knows the truth. Fear gripped the entire community. Phil Mitchell wasn't prepared to sit back and wait for the police. Convinced Gray was orchestrating events from the shadows, Phil began conducting his own investigation. His search led him to an abandoned warehouse where he uncovered a shocking clue. A recent photograph of Albert Square. The image had clearly been taken only days earlier. Someone was monitoring the residence. But who? As the mystery deepened, Jack finally identified the owner of the distorted voice from the recording. The revelation threatened to tear Walford apart. The voice belonged to someone everyone trusted. A respected member of the community. Someone who had spent years hiding in plain sight. Before Jack could expose them, disaster struck. A fire erupted in an empty building near the square. Emergency services rushed to the scene. Inside, investigators discovered evidence deliberately destroyed. Among the ashes lay fragments of files connected to Gray's secret storage unit. Whoever was protecting the truth had acted quickly. But one item survived. A partially burned notebook containing dates, names, and coded references. At the center of every page was one recurring phrase. Project Return. The words sent chills through everyone involved. Was Gray planning something? Or had someone else been carrying out his work all along? As the week came to a dramatic close, Chelsea received a final message. This time it wasn't anonymous. A photograph appeared on her phone. The image showed Gray standing outside the prison gates, smiling. Across the bottom were 3 words. See you soon. Chelsea's hands trembled as she stared at the screen. Because if the picture was recent, there was only one horrifying conclusion. Gray Atkins was free. And his return to Walford had only just begun. With old wounds reopening and deadly secrets finally surfacing, Albert Square faced one of its darkest chapters yet. But the biggest question remained unanswered. What sinister secret was Gray willing to kill to protect? The answer, it seemed, was coming, and nobody in Walford would be ready for it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to EastEnders Spoilers Official.